school's out, blame corona, but I still got some science I could show ya. No class, no school, that's cool, throw the class on the YouTube. Even if they shut the school down, I'll get that knowledge anyway somehow. Real scholars won't stop for corona. Tune in for that science takeover.
Hello everybody, welcome to Mrs. Finney's science class. Shout out to the HB Warriors, to all of our subscribers, and to all of our visitors from my house to your house. Let's learn science. I'm glad to be here today with you all. Check this out. I have a customized lab coat. Finally gave it a mail. So excited. So we're starting off today with our lesson ending lesson 9 with a reading further. This reading further says fingerprinting for identity. How does that work? Fingerprinting for identity. So our learning objective, I can explain a useful tool that is used to solve all kinds of mysteries. Do you like to solve mysteries? Is that something you're interested in? Forensic science, are you interested in that? Do you know what that is? Today, let's get into some fingerprinting. So in our reading, it starts off by saying fingerprinting for identity. There's no such thing as a perfect crime. Criminals always leave evidence behind at a crime scene, even if they think they've made a clean getaway. What kind of evidence do they leave? And how can the same kind of evidence be used to solve mysteries about the ancient Egyptian mummy of King Tut and a frozen body dug out of a glacier? Sounds cringy. So mystery number 1, who stole the diamonds? It's nighttime. The streets are crowded with people celebrating a festival, but deep in the underground vault of a bank, a different kind of activity is taking place. 2 criminals have broken into the vault through an air vent and have found a $10 million shipment of diamonds to steal. They scoop up the diamonds, crawl back through the air vent, and calmly blend into the crowds. In a matter of minutes, they're gone. The next day, bank officials discover the robbery. Detectives find only one piece of evidence. A paper bag containing a half-eaten sandwich? This bag holds 2 key pieces of information about the thieves. Evidence in a sandwich? Yes. Let's take a look. There are very few characteristics that are absolutely unique to an individual. Criminals might leave lots of different kinds of evidence at a crime scene, and though most evidence cannot be used to positively identify a person, fingerprints and DNA often can. Fingerprints are marks that show the unique pattern of swirls and ridges found on a person's fingertips. Take a look at your fingertips. Swirls and ridges. Have you noticed swirls and ridges on your fingertip? Look closely. When a person touches an object with his or her hands, sweat and natural oils on the skin are deposited on the object's surface, reproducing the fingertips pattern. In the ransacked bank vault, detectives tested the discarded paper bag for fingerprints and found a single fingerprint. Next, they had to identify the person who left the fingerprint. To do so, they tried to match the print from a crime scene with one from a computerized database. The Federal Bureau of Investigation's FBI Integrated Automated Fingerprint Identification System, IAFIS, database holds over 100 million fingerprints from criminals, military personnel, and government and civilian employees. But the detectives could find no match. Had their investigation reached a dead end so fast? I hope not. So here, getting to the next piece. Remember, the detectives found something else in the vault. The half-eaten sandwich. They sent it to the police lab where it was analyzed for the presence of DNA. How could DNA help them catch the thieves? Because each person has unique DNA, it can be used to identify an individual. In this way, DNA is like a fingerprint. DNA fingerprinting can even provide more information than traditional fingerprinting does. Wow, wow, wow. Let's take a look here. See? Interesting image. Okay, the pattern of swirls and ridges on this fingerprint can be analyzed and compared with those in a database to identify the person who left it at a crime scene. Look at this. Why do the crime? Why even? No point, no point. All right, so let's take a look at this image. Law enforcement officials collect and analyze DNA from cells to identify a person who was present at a crime scene. So in this photo, the mouth of a bottle found at a crime scene is swabbed to collect DNA. Check that out. The DNA will be analyzed and compared with DNA from possible known suspects or found in a DNA database. They're not getting away with this. Nope. Check that out. Swab from the mouth of a bottle. Wow. All right, so here it says the process of DNA fingerprinting is based on the fact that blood, saliva, hair, and skin contain cells with DNA. All of these can be left behind at a crime scene. In the police laboratory, the chewed surface of the sandwich, which contained DNA from a thief's saliva, were removed with a swab. The DNA from the cells was purified and specific fragments of DNA were obtained. These fragments were placed in a jelly-like gel. When an electric current was applied to the gel, the DNA pieces moved through the gel to create a banded pattern. The band pattern was compared with millions of patterns in computerized DNA databases similar to those for fingerprints. The detectives were lucky. The DNA on the sandwich matched a known DNA pattern found in a database. Because they only look at small fragments of DNA, it is possible, but not likely, for two people to have the same DNA fingerprint. To verify that the DNA fingerprinting was accurate, the detectives took the suspect into custody and compared his fingerprint to those found at the crime scene. Sure enough, they match. The suspect confessed and named his accomplice, who also was arrested. Both men were convicted, put behind bars, and the diamonds were returned. DNA fingerprinting had saved the day. We're going to take a look at a video.
If you have fingers, I'm guessing you got fingerprints. Those fingerprints are what make you unique, right? That's why all the smart criminals on TV wear gloves. I mean, not even identical twins have the same prints. But a lot of the way that fingerprints form is, as it turns out, controlled by genetics. Even though a lot of people think of fingerprints as being random, the main pattern, which is the general shape that your print makes, is really a product of your genes. There are three basic classes of fingerprints. There are whorls, which mostly look like swirls or circles, loops, which are just curvy lines that start and end in the same side of the finger, and arches, which start and end on opposite sides of the finger. Now, genetics don't directly control which of these patterns appear on each finger, but they do affect the factors that lead to the different shapes, like the symmetry of the finger's surface. See, between the 6th and 8th week of a fetus's development, a fetus starts to get these extra thick pads on its fingers and palms and feet called volar pads. These pads begin to appear when a special kind of stem cell tissue swells beneath the existing layers of skin. This tissue is called mesenchyme, and it eventually forms connective tissues like skin and blood vessels. In humans, these volar pads don't stick around for long. Around week 10, the pads stop growing, while the hands continue to grow. For the next 5 weeks, then, the volar pads smooth out into the hands and feet we're all familiar with. But what they look like as they disappear is largely controlled by genes, which affect both how the hand grows and when exactly the fingerprints begin to form, and the results are not always symmetrical or uniform. For instance, a finger might grow faster on one side than the other, leading to a volar pad that's slanted to the right or left like a tiny ramp. If the primary ridges, which are the earliest precursors of the ridges in fingerprints, form along that slant, they'll make a loop. But if the volar pad isn't slanted when the ridges show up, then they'll form a more symmetrical pattern. Research has found that if the pad is flat but still prominent, the ridges will turn into a whorl, but if the pad has mostly disappeared, then they'll form an arch. Since these patterns are informed by genetics, the patterns often run in families. But there are smaller intricacies within the fingerprints, which experts just call minutiae, that do vary from person to person even within families. And we're not totally clear on how that part works, but research suggests that these finer points are influenced by environmental factors, including the actual position of the fetus in the womb, whether it's touching the amniotic sac, and even the density of the amniotic fluid. Together, these things can tweak the overall pattern, like the number of ridges or where they converge on your finger. Even in identical twins, then, the patterns on each of their fingers may match up, but their prints aren't exactly the same. So not only are your fingerprints unique, they can also tell you a lot about how you developed in the womb.
Alright, so now we know how our fingerprints are formed. Great piece of information, right? Let's take a look at this next section. Mystery 2. What killed King Tut? Have you heard of King Tut before? Yeah? No? Let's talk about it. Scientists use DNA to solve all kinds of mysteries, not just crimes. One of the biggest mysteries in the 20th century involved the young Egyptian pharaoh King Tutnam. King Tut lived in ancient Egypt 3,300 years ago. He became king at the age of 9, but ruled for only about 10 years before dying. After he died, his mummy was placed in a tomb that wasn't found until 1922. Archaeologists discovered the tomb filled with treasures, including a solid gold death mask, but for the next 80 years, his life and death remained a mystery. Why did Tut die around the age of 19? Was he murdered? DNA fingerprinting helped to answer these questions. All right, take a look here. Scientists extracted DNA from the bones of King Tut's mummy. DNA fingerprinting solved ancient mysteries about his health, his relatives, and why he might have died at such a young age. Do you have any idea what might have caused his death? Take a guess. Drop it in the comments. Let's read further. So, an analysis of DNA in Tut's remains showed that the DNA came from 2 different organisms, his own and another organism. That organism turned out to be the parasite that causes the deadly disease malaria. Tut had malaria at least once in his short life. Studying Tut's bones revealed that he also had an inherited bone disease, which explained why many walking canes were found in his tomb and why he was generally painted as sitting down. Tut might have died, not from a crime, but from either malaria or bone disease. Scientists were also curious about his ancestry. In 2007, they began to compare his mummy with 10 other royal mummies that they thought might be related. Using DNA taken from their bones, the scientists were able to create a 5-generation family tree for Tut. Check this out. They concluded that Tut's parents were most likely brother and sister, a common practice among ancient royalty. Look this story up. There's so much to it. Very interesting. Read further. Yes. Can you believe that? Oh my goodness. Next, mystery 3. Who was the Iceman? DNA also has been used to help solve other ancient mysteries. Questions about where early humans came from and where they moved thousands of years ago are being answered, thanks to the DNA they left behind. How can ancient DNA provide answers? All right, check this out. Woo! Otzi was discovered in the Alps. His DNA fingerprint shows that he was closely related to the people of Sardinia. His ancestors probably traveled between Sardinia and the Alps thousands of years ago. Let's see, who are we talking about here? In 1991, a well-preserved human male body was found frozen in ice in the Alps mountain range between Italy and Austria. Scientists extracted DNA from its bones. Analysis showed that the man lived about 3,300 BCE, more than 5,300 years ago. He was named Otzi after the Ötztal Alps where he was found. When scientists compare Otzi's DNA fingerprint with those of local men, they found that Otzi had 19 close relatives still living in Austria. Even more interesting was what Otzi's DNA fingerprint told scientists about where he came from. By comparing Otzi's DNA with DNA from human remains found in other parts of the world, scientists discovered that Otzi and his living relatives are more closely related to people who live in Sardinia, an island in the Mediterranean Sea, than to people in mainland Europe where he was found. Scientists think that Otzi and his people may have traveled between the Alps and Sardinia thousands of years ago. The complete story of our human ancestry still has many missing pieces, but as more and more human fossils containing DNA are found, scientists are starting to understand who we are and where we come from. The one-of-a-kind features of DNA and fingerprints are helping to unlock many mysteries in both criminal investigations and the study of human history. Without trying, our ancestors left behind clues to help others understand the past. And that is the end of our reading selection for today. Lesson 9, we are wrapping up. All right, so here, our essential question: how can the same kind of evidence that criminals leave behind be used to solve mysteries about the ancient Egyptian mummy of King Tut and a frozen body dug out of a glacier? Think about it. Same kind of evidence. The one-of-a-kind features of DNA and fingerprints are helping to unlock many mysteries in both criminal investigations and the study of human history. Thanks to DNA and thanks to fingerprints, we're finding out a lot of things. All right, so that wraps it up for today. Let's close out with our outro. Lesson 9 is done. Here we go. It's been fun. It's been real. We break it down and pick up science skills. Give yourself 2 claps just for tuning in. Come back, meet tomorrow. We can learn again. Oh, it's been fun. It's been real. We break it down and pick up science skills. Give yourself 2 claps just for tuning in. Come back, meet tomorrow. We can learn again. Have a great rest of your day. I will see you tomorrow. Peace.